Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Community Living Project's Sharing Possibilities for Community Connections learning event. The Community Living Education Project, also known as CLEP, is a program through the Rutgers School of Public Health. CLEP is committed to providing individual guidance, mentoring, and education regarding community living resources for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities living here in New Jersey. The CLEP team, as you know, many of whom are family members themselves, really serve as a bridge for families whose loved ones may be seeking residential supports outside of the family's home. Today's webinar, Understanding Advocacy through the New Jersey Council on Developmental Disabilities, also known as NJCDD, is being presented by Ms. Mercedes Witowsky, who is the Executive Director of the New Jersey Council. To assure the highest sound quality possible, all attendees will be muted during today's event. To interact with the host and the presenter, please use your Q&A option, which is at the bottom on your toolbar of Zoom. Please use that option rather than the chat feature, and I'll be turning to the Q&A feature for your questions at the end of today's program. Topic-specific questions will be addressed as long as time allows. And for consideration to all of our attendees, we really do encourage you to keep your questions as general as possible. You'll notice that for today's webinar, subtitles have been enabled at the bottom of your screen. If you would prefer not to have those on your screen, you can hide those by going into the More option in your bottom toolbar of your Zoom screen, and you can select Hide Subtitles, and then they will no longer appear on your screen. So at this time, I'd like to welcome today's presenter, Ms. Mercedes Witowsky. And Mercedes, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Colleen, and thank you to Rutgers and the Community Living Education Project for asking NJCDD to present today. I'm delighted to be here. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. It's not such a lovely day, so let's spend this time together and hopefully share some information with you about the New Jersey Council on Developmental Disabilities and ways in which you might consider getting involved. So let's start the clicking here. There we go. So the New Jersey Council on Developmental Disabilities, I've been the executive director for about 3 years now. I am delighted to say that my time spent has been very encouraging and very rewarding, where the true tenets of our Council on Developmental Disabilities is to ensure that advocacy happens, that we have opportunities to advocate, to collaborate, and to educate our space in disability services throughout New Jersey and beyond. A little bit about myself. I am the parent of a young woman who became disabled in 2006 when she was a typical teenager and had a rupture in her brain. My full career since 1982 in various jobs supporting people with disabilities in the community couldn't have come to such a halting crash when my own daughter became disabled. But I've used that. I've used her disability, having had a brain injury, to help really advance my beliefs, my ability to help others in advocacy, in finding ways to work together to ultimately provide for our children, my daughter included. So I'd like to fulfill the agenda that we set out for today. First is to give you a brief understanding of the Council on Developmental Disabilities, our authority and our purpose, to talk about how we manage through a 5-year planning process with priorities, to look at what we do internally and what we fund through the council, ways in which that we collaborate, and then hopefully have some time for your questions and provide some answers or point you in the right direction. So who are we? Well, I know this young lady on your screen here is Barbara Coppins, and I think I saw her in the session today. So welcome, Barbara. The Council on Developmental Disabilities is authorized by the Federal Developmental Disabilities Act and also established under state statute. And we are mandated as the Disability Rights and Advocacy Organization in New Jersey. There are councils across the country. So if you've lived in a different state or plan to move to a different state or United States territory, there will be a council on developmental disabilities because that's what's required by the Act. In New Jersey, our council is in, but not of, the Department of Human Services. In general, councils on developmental disabilities give individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and the family member caregivers of individuals the ability to have a voice in the planning and the implementation of its state's public policies. A very important role, because if we don't talk to people with disabilities and we don't talk to their families, and we don't truly understand what it is and how it is the systems need to support them. As an organization, the members are appointed by our governor in New Jersey. The council has up to 30 members appointed. The majority, or 60%, must be people with disabilities or immediate family members of individuals with disabilities. That 60% has a process to be nominated and appointed within the state's system of boards and commissions by our governor. The other 40% are required members as included in the federal act, and they must be organizations both private and state, plus Disability Rights New Jersey and the Boggs Center on Developmental Disabilities. There are 4 quarterly public meetings a year, and those public meetings right now are being held virtually, with the next one coming up in August. So I hope that this vision is very self-evident to you. All individuals with developmental disabilities in the council's vision are contributing members of their neighborhoods, of their society, of their communities. They make real choices, should have control over their lives, should be given the opportunity to excel and make mistakes, are in a position to achieve personal goals, are an ability to influence the processes that affect their lives, and should have the same rights, privileges, and responsibilities as any other citizen does. For the last 5 years, and concluding in September of this year, we operated under our 5-year plan that focused on key areas that were informed by the public through a very robust process of public input. Those goals for the last 5 years have concluded or just about finishing up, focusing on direct support staffing issues. And many of you may be familiar with the Coalition for a DSP, a direct support professional living wage. That effort through the council's funding has really been remarkably successful in increasing wages for direct support professionals, but also elevating an understanding of what DSPs do for our children and how they provide the critical and vital supports and services in order to achieve a person's best life. Other goals in the last 5 years have included special education advocacy, employment, housing, transportation, health and wellness, and self-advocate and family training and information. In our next 5 years, which will begin October 1st of this year, 2022, October 1st of next year, 2022, we will be focused on systems around 3 themes: advocacy, systems change, and capacity building. Soon you'll see the goals and objectives for the next 5 years laid out in our website, but this is just a snapshot of a process that's just recently concluded and been now approved by the council. So within our council itself, there are some programs and activities that we organize, and these include People First New Jersey, Youth Leadership, Family Support Planning Council, and the New Jersey's Partners in Policymaking program. So let me walk you through these. First, People First. In 2014, the New Jersey Council on Developmental Disabilities established a countywide People First chapters in our state. And right now you'll see the counties that have current active chapters, including Bergen, Burlington, Camden, Hunterdon, Morris, Ocean, and Warren. If you live in one of those counties and you have a disability, or you have a child with a loved one with disabilities, you can reach out to Frank Latham. He's the People First and Youth Leadership Coordinator in our state. He works at the council, and he'd be happy to share information about the activities that these chapters are successful in, including advocacy locally within their counties, leadership development, helping each other advocate, and for many times helping shape the voice, shape the interests of individuals who may not have the ability to advocate directly, but have the skills and the ability to bring advocacy concerns to the forefront and to make a difference in their lives. And that's for all adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities throughout these chapters. But what I find most interesting is the work that is done at the youth leadership level. It's an opportunity to get information and to connect with youth between the ages of 15 and 25, most often those youth who are already in school, so that they have a better understanding about how government works and how their voices are and can be used to help shape what their needs are. So in those groups, there's training components that focus on how to be a leader, how to participate as a public speaker, how government works, the importance and how to vote, how to use the right language as we talk to each other and respect each other, and various other topic areas that help students develop as young advocates, young leaders toward their futures. So those are two of the projects that we do and manage in-house at the council that help bring the advocacy capacity forward for young people and individuals with disabilities. The other critical area is the voice of families. The New Jersey Regional Family Support Planning Councils are throughout the state of New Jersey, again by county, and then within those counties, some are teamed up together as a regional council. So Sussex, Warren, and Morris, I live in Morris County, that's Council 1. You'll see the list on your screen of how the councils are organized. There's a statewide body, and then those local 10 chapter county organizational leadership. Kyoko Coco is the statewide family support coordinator, and she's always available to help guide, bring you to the council in the county in which you live, and to answer any questions that you may have. The Family Support Planning Council is another way that you can become involved or share with your families and help them to connect. It's a great way to connect to not just to people who have lived experience, but to share with each other some of the struggles you might face, the ways in which you've addressed issues, how you've been able to secure information that's been important at the various stages in your life. None of us are at the same place. We all come from where we are in our lives, either as a person with disabilities or as a family member supporting loved ones with disabilities. But what we do have is we do have the ability to connect with each other and find ways that we can help each other learn, grow, understand, not have to repeat processes that become more laborsome than getting it firsthand from somebody who's lived through it and who has already taken on maybe one of the challenges or obstacles that you are facing right now. Throughout the COVID pandemic, it was important for families very, very early on to recognize that they needed to be prepared. They needed to make sure, as the pandemic hit, and any day in our lives, that we have all of our documentation together, that we have a list of caregivers that are available and ready to step in the event that we become ill or someone else in our family becomes ill that pulls us in another direction. We helped families very early on in the pandemic to share their family plan and to make sure that the hospitals, the physicians, the extended family that were important in our lives became organized and at the ready. Also helped families consider a way to get organized physically by making sure that medication and devices that one might need and rely on often was ready to go. It's never too late to get prepared. Some people went through the pandemic without pulling all this together, and that's okay. But take the time. Make sure that you are as prepared as possible now and into the future. And then let me touch on the Partners in Policymaking. I was actually a graduate of this program soon after my daughter became disabled. And it was a way for me to focus on how I needed to personally have a voice as a parent advocate for my daughter. And as much as we think we know, there's so much more information that we have to learn. So committing to this project for 8 months back in the mid 2000, around 2014 for May 15, was a way for me to really devote my attention and my energy to understanding from disability advocates, people in the field, people across the country, and really immerse myself in how to be an advocate, how to work with others to advocate, and how to work with state agencies and leaders in our state, in our government. Right now, the New Jersey Council on Developmental Disabilities works in partnership to deliver this nationally recognized Partners in Policymaking program. And we work with the Boggs Center on Developmental Disabilities. You'll see Jamie McGeedy's information. It's actually, we need to update that. That's a little bit outdated. Sorry about that, Jamie. And Colleen McLaughlin at the Boggs Center and Disability Rights New Jersey. And we come together to make sure that the program is robust, is full of the best national known experts, that can help you understand the role of advocacy and the voice and the role that you play. Partners in Policymaking is available to individuals with disabilities to participate, as well as family members of individuals with disabilities. And it just so happens that right now they're accepting applications for the upcoming new program, the new 8-month cycle. So please, if you have an interest, drop it something in the chat. Let me know. I think that Colleen is going to include the application link in the chat for you as well. Applications are due by June 25th, and there will be a notification of acceptance period by the end of July so that you can prepare for the September weekend sessions. These sessions right now are still virtual. There is some discussion about whether or not they could move to some hybrid model early in 2022 in the second half. But for now, there's about 25 individuals that will be selected to participate. And every year when I attend the graduation, it's the most rewarding time for me to listen to graduates, partners, graduates who have come so far in understanding the role of advocacy and the ways in which they can make a difference. This is a big step. There's lots of steps in between. And we know that for individuals who have disabilities, families of individuals with disabilities, there may not be one right door, but we want to make sure at the New Jersey Council on Developmental Disabilities that we provide you the resources, the information, wherever you are on that advocacy journey. And importantly, when you have an issue, that you have the opportunity to get answers and to make sure that you're connecting with other people who've lived some of the same things that you're living through. The other important report and information I want to make sure that we impart to you today. In 2018, we had appointed in New Jersey for the first time an ombudsman for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families. And Paul Aronson has held that role since the beginning. He has another staff in his office, Christine Bacter, also works with individuals and their families. And just recently in April, Paul issued the 3rd annual report as required by his office. I suggest that you add this to your reading list. It's about 30 some odd pages, but a great read. And as Paul indicates in his report, in general, he observes that we need to have more simplified systems in our state, that we need to focus on what people need when they need it, giving people choice, flexibility, and ways in which they can get what they need as they need it within the various systems in our state. And that would include the education system, that would include vocational rehabilitation, Division of Developmental Disabilities, mental health, addiction services, whatever people with disabilities need. So I suggest you read that report and use Paul, Christine, and his office as a resource when situations are not at their best and when you need some help in navigating the systems. So I mentioned earlier that we do also fund some projects, and most of that funding has come to a close with the 5-year plan that we are just concluding. But there's always an opportunity through our community innovations projects for organizations to apply for up to $10,000 for a 12-month program that relates to our 5-year plan in some way. It's up to the applicant to determine what the plan might be. So it gives you, the applicant, the latitude to look at ways in which you can provide meaningful, effective options, new approaches to addressing various disability-related issues. The funding is on a rolling basis, so there isn't a time frame by which an applicant must apply. And the awards are made again on a rolling basis in response. And that's for an organization's application. We also, through the council, provide opportunities for individuals and families to attend conferences, seminars, advocacy training, activities and events that cost money. And there's a way to seek reimbursement through the council. This is a small way of addressing an interest that you have and the ability for the council to help fund that initiative. There are some requirements, and there's an application on our website that can give you more information on that leadership training support fund. Next up, I'd like to talk about something that is really at the crux of my leadership style, my strong beliefs, and I'd like to share how collaboration and partnership really goes a long way. It's a powerful strategy that, for me, has always been effective in my work in this area. The New Jersey Council on Developmental Disabilities collaborates extensively. It's really the crux of what we do every day. And that's with individuals, with families, with advocacy groups, with the public and private agencies that exist that support people with disabilities in some way. Our collaboration really goes up and down, and you'll see on your screen, you're able to access the slides here. You know, our work by being in contact regularly with state departments like Department of Human Services, Department of Children and Family Services, Department of Education, county and local groups like the Children's Interagency Coordinating Councils, groups like the Family Support Coalition, the ARC of New Jersey, also groups like the New Jersey Self-Advocacy Boards, the New Jersey Family Advisory Council, local New Jersey Transit task forces and citizen committees. There are so many groups that are out there, and while they all have their own distinct purpose, vision, tasks, they also all share that thread of disability-related topics. And we need to make sure that if we're going to change, if we're going to ensure that the supports and services are accessible and available for our children, for ourselves, if we have disabilities, that we use all the opportunities available to connect with the various players, if you will, in the field and in this space. Because together, we have so much greater access to the things that are important when we can share the set of priorities, work together, and manage through those situations. The New Jersey Developmental Disability Advocacy Network was something that I formed about 4.5 years ago. And that effort has really gone a long way in groups, individuals coming together and talking about challenges, talking about ways in which to bring about change and make things better. And I'll use a couple of examples. That group has focused more recently on the New Jersey Comprehensive Assessment Tool and the ways in which the tool is lacking in certain ways and can be more robust in assessing individuals for what they need and ensuring that that assessment equates to the kinds of services and supports important for that individual. So think about the ways in which you collaborate and you partner in your lives, and the ways in which, as an advocate, we all can work together to ensure that when we share what's important and what's positive and what can make a difference, that we have that opportunity to actually come together and be that change. One of the more recent opportunities that NJCDD has been engaged in is the formation with the New Jersey legislature in forming a New Jersey Legislative Disability Caucus. We are one of 8 states right now that have something like this. And I will tell you that the New Jersey Caucus is very strong and very committed. Senate President Steve Sweeney chairs the caucus. There are about 13 senators, both Democrat and Republican, who have joined the caucus, and about 23 members of the Assembly. There are also almost 40 organizations who have become supporting agencies or organizations to the caucus. And on your screen here, and I think in the chat, Colleen will include information to connect you with who the caucus members are, who the legislative members are, how you can become a supporting organization and the list of organizations that already support the caucus, how to submit a question for the caucus to discuss at their one of their 4 quarterly meetings, and then how to sign up for caucus updates. The importance here is the bipartisan nature of this caucus and the fact that the caucus has agreed to talk about areas of importance. The next event on July 27th will focus on housing and the housing related issues facing people with disabilities in our state. Important to note that while New Jersey Council on Developmental Disabilities has a focus primarily to individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, this caucus spans across all disabilities and disability groups. And that's, again, one of the significant elements of collaboration, because there are so many things like housing, like transportation, like employment that are equally important regardless of disability. And this caucus's commitment is to make sure that those conversations take place in our legislature and that action takes place to help solve some of the issues across disability populations. So one of the other things that you can participate in through our council is a magazine. There are 4 magazines a year. They're all available on our website. but I'll draw your attention to the most current issue, which is volume 1 of this year, featuring a past council member who recently retired. Her name is Ellie Byra, and that's her wonderful family there on the cover. Please download a copy of this, or if you go to our mailing list, it's one of the magazines that, I think the only magazine that I get that's still a hard copy, that comes right through the mail 4 times a year. So we encourage you to read about what people and families are facing, and some great articles and information across the lifespan. As I close here, I'll make sure that you have the information here where our magazine, our Disability in Focus blog, our Advocacy and Action newsletter, and our Common Ground newsletter are all available to you. They're available on our website. They're available if you subscribe online at njcdd.org. Just enter a little bit of information and you can begin to receive our information via email, and again, our magazine in the mail. I'll also leave on this screen ways in which you can get in touch with us at NJCDD. Even though our office is in Trenton, we have still been working remotely, but our main office is in downtown Trenton. Our phone, our fax, and our email address, njcdd@njcdd.org. So Colleen, if you want to share any of the questions folks might have, I'd be happy to answer anything that I can.
I absolutely do. Mercedes, thank you so much. That was really wonderful and very, very comprehensive. We do have several questions, so I will try to potentially consolidate a couple of them. So the first question is, if someone has not really thought about getting involved in advocacy to this point, do you have any suggestions on how they can get started? I think you kind of alluded to that a little bit, but maybe you can give some ideas.
Mm-hmm. So all the 10, if they're a person with a disability, they can reach out to Frank Latham, who was on that screen just a little earlier, or just send an email to njcdd@njcdd.org, and we'll make sure that we get Frank to reach out to you. He'll follow up with a phone call, talk about what your interest is around advocacy, and maybe where to take the next step. If you're a family member, I would suggest that you either go to our website or again, send an email to njcdd@njcdd.org. Let us know where you live, and we can connect you to a local family support planning council in your area. All those groups meet virtually right now, so it's a beautiful thing. You don't have to travel anywhere. You can come to a meeting. They meet every month. No pressure, just to meet some other people and communicate what your interests are and take that first step. That was my first time. I just went to a meeting, and honestly, it was just arms wide open, ready to understand where I was at and what I was interested in. So just reach out.
That's great. Thank you so much. I have 2 questions here. I might consolidate. It's a 2-part question. So from 2 different people. So the first question is, how might family members encourage their loved one, whether it's their child or a sibling or another family member, get involved in advocacy work? And then there was another question somewhat related to saying that there seems to be many programs for individuals that are higher functionings, that are higher functioning. And if your loved one perhaps isn't, or maybe has some behavioral challenges, are there ways that perhaps you can still get involved? I hope that was clear. Okay.
Sure. So, if you have an interest, yourself or for your loved one to get involved. Again, my first suggestion would be to reach out, talk to Frank. Frank will easily connect you with groups or his groups that meet regularly and how to participate and get involved. The important thing here is to just take that first step. I hope that you'll always find a friendly, warm, comforting voice on the end of any line to the New Jersey Council, and the opportunity to just express what it is you might be looking for. It may be, very small, intimate advocacy efforts, like some phone calls, connecting to another advocate as a buddy, somebody to just talk to, explore options, and make sure that, if there's a good fit, that's what we nurture and we continue. If there's not a good fit in that particular situation, there's so many other advocacy groups across our state that meet, and many of whom meet still virtually, that we can help make that connection.
That's great. Thank you. The next question is regarding a People's First group, and how can someone begin what I believe must be a new group? This is specifically Passaic County.
So yeah, so I did have the counties listed where there are currently groups operating, and they have a regular schedule of when they meet. But if you did not see your county listed there and you're interested in starting a group, Frank Latham is ready to talk to you. Email Frank, or if you didn't see that in the, and I think you're making these slides available, Colleen. So
yes, they are in the handout. Yep, they're in the chat box.
So you can go to your chat box, download the slides, and then you'll have Frank's email address or an email to njcdd@njcdd.org. We'll get to Frank and he will follow up with you.
Frank is going to be a very busy man for a little while, I think, is right. Again, there was a question about the handouts and the references. I am putting them once again in the chat box, so you should be able to download the files, as well as the report from Paul Aronson in the Ombudsman's office, the policy partners in policymaking. I also included all of those items in the chat box, so you can scroll up, and near the end of the program, I will provide those one more time. The next question, Mercedes, is asking if, I'm not sure if you'll know the information for this one, if the annual report that comes out of our Ombudsman's office, does that get utilized at all or incorporated into the Disability Caucus? This individual is saying that the report is quite comprehensive and might serve as a guideline for needs and how to address those.
Yeah, great question. Thanks, Colleen. Yes, the observations in Paul's report are definitely, it's shared with the legislature. So the Legislative Disability Caucus all have a copy of his report. And in the planning and discussions of the topics that have come up for public viewing and input, all of these topic areas in Paul's report certainly clearly lay out a blueprint for the types of issues, challenges that individuals face. And we have to start somewhere. So we certainly have used this report and know how important it is. We also know that most people go to Paul in that office when they have a problem. So we recognize that we're dealing with problems that exist, but that's the place that we have to start in addressing solutions. And the caucus is very much aware of those issues, and we'll continue to use that information in the work of the caucus, I'm sure.
That's great. Thank you. This question is regarding partners in policymaking. And if you're not certain, I'll be sure to re-include the link. This individual is saying that their son is 21 and they would like to apply for the program, but the website is saying that it's a leadership program and advocacy education effort for adults who are over the age of 21 and family members of young children. So would this person still be able to apply? Is it okay if your loved one is already an adult? And can you participate? I think that's the core of this.
Thanks. And sorry if there's a confusion on that. Yes, the program is for young family members so that um, the program can help bring about leadership skills for our young leaders who have young children. However, I believe that they will consider candidates who are applying who have children up to the age of 25. So I
Oh,
would, if you
okay.
have a 21-year-old, I would absolutely encourage someone to apply. Um, the individual with disabilities does not have to be up to the age of 25, but it's the family member that in this Partners in Policymaking program that they would like to focus on the young families who have the ability to have the greatest impact over the years ahead. I hope that
Okay.
answers that question.
Great, thank you. And I'm sure we can refer the individual also back to the Boggs Center for more specific questions. Would that be appropriate?
Absolutely. The
Okay,
application is also available. I think, Colleen, you were including that.
I
So,
did, yes,
thank you.
absolutely.
Perfect.
Yep, and I'll include it again before we close. This is actually another question about the Disability Caucus. And this question is asking if if the Disability Caucus also addresses DCF and CSOC because they're a separate department and not really part of Department of Human Services, or is that not an arena for the Disability Caucus?
So again, the Disability Caucus addresses all disabilities. One in four people in New Jersey has a disability. So the caucus addresses all people, and that would include all departments that might be connected to people across the lifespan.
Okay, great,
DCF
thank
would
you.
be included.
And that would be included. Okay, thank you. I think that answers this person's question. I believe that may have addressed all of the questions that I have at the moment. I'll give individuals one last moment before we wrap up if needed. And if there's one more question to type in, please feel free to do that. And once again, I'm going to add in the handouts from today's program, as well as the Ombudsman's report. These have all been added in a little bit earlier in the program. There is also the magazine from NJCDD, that the Peoples and Families magazine, which is wonderful. And I did read through the most current issue that you shared yesterday, Mercedes. So I don't think I see any others coming in. Going once? Okay.
So
Mercedes, is there anything you'd like to add to wrap up? That'd be great.
sure, I'd love to. So there is an event this evening at 7 p.m. that the New Jersey Council will host in collaboration with a number of others that focuses on a bill that is before the Senate this morning, S 3434, which would involve extending a school year for a young person who was about to graduate this June, who may not have had the ability to fully participate in their educational plan in the last 12 months. So if you have someone in that age range about to graduate or know of anyone who might be in that age range, please send us a quick email. We'll make sure you get registered. We're also recording the session this evening and would like to make sure that you have that opportunity to participate if it applies to you or your child with disabilities. So just want to put a little plug in for that. I know that that will not be particular when you receive it, when you watch this in the future, but today is June the 3rd, 2021.
Thank you for clarifying that. That's great, Mercedes. And I will, I believe I will be able to share some information directly via email with everyone after this. So I do see a couple of questions from folks who may not be able to grab items from the chat box. So, well, with that, Mercedes, as we start to wrap up, I thank you very much. This was a really valuable session. As a reminder to everyone, the Community Living Education Project, as you know, is focused on offering these types of presentations to address the needs of our community. And so we really encourage you to please take the brief post-event evaluation, and that will appear on your screen once you leave the meeting or once we end the webinar. So the link will be there. It takes less than 2 minutes. We really do welcome your feedback, because when we get that, then we can tailor our future programs to be sure we're providing the information that you'd like to learn about. So please take a moment to do that. So on behalf of the CLEP team, Mercedes, we thank you very much for your time. We thank all of you for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you all again at our next programs. Thank you so much.